Siren's Kiss spends 12 episodes asking whether its heroine is a serial killer, then surrounds her with so many suspicious men that innocence almost becomes the least believable twist. The mystery is sleek, manipulative, and occasionally shameless, but it knows exactly how to keep suspicion moving. Han Seol-ah is the senior auctioneer at Royal Auction. She is elegant, controlled, and surrounded by wealthy admirers. She also has a terrifying history. 3 men who loved her have died in separate accidents, and each man bought a large life insurance policy naming Seol-ah as the beneficiary shortly before his death. The latest man was Yoon Sung-jae, a wealthy restaurant owner and the only one Seol-ah planned to marry. He died in a boating accident, but one detail makes the case even stranger. Sung-jae canceled his policy just before his death, so Seol-ah received nothing. At Royal Auction, assistant auctioneer Kim Yoon-ji is furious that Seol-ah remains the company's star. Yoon-ji believes she is just as capable and attractive, yet everyone still treats her like an understudy. Baek Jun-byum, a wealthy technology CEO and important client, makes the gap painfully clear. He barely notices Yoon-ji because his attention is fixed on Seol-ah. Yoon-ji finally confronts Seol-ah and threatens to expose a secret unless Seol-ah gives up the senior position. Seol-ah listens without losing her composure, but the cold look she gives Yoon-ji makes the threat feel dangerous. That night, Yoon-ji calls Cha Woo-seok, an elite investigator with NH Life's Special Investigation Unit. Woo-seok has built his career on exposing insurance fraud, and once he catches a suspicious scent, he refuses to let go. Yoon-ji claims she has evidence of a murder disguised as an insurance accident. The police already closed the death as accidental, so she wants Woo-seok to investigate. People in the industry call him the Grim Reaper because fraudulent claims tend to die the moment they reach his desk. Yoon-ji chooses him precisely because he does not need a police order before asking uncomfortable financial questions. She will not name the suspected killer over the phone. She promises to show him proof in person, making her death before the meeting feel less like despair and more like an interruption. They arrange to meet on the roof of Royal Auction. Woo-seok reaches the building, but before he can go inside, a woman crashes onto the glass canopy above the entrance. Her phone is still showing his incoming call. The victim is Yoon-ji. The scene does not look like a simple suicide. Yoon-ji landed more than 6 feet from the wall, and the railing is too high for an ordinary fall. Small injuries around her neck and inside her mouth also suggest that someone may have strangled or restrained her first. Whoever pushed her probably had enough strength to lift her over the barrier. Woo-seok slips into Royal Auction to inspect the roof. Inside, he sees Seol-ah walking through an indoor garden toward a one-way mirror. She calmly fixes her hair without realizing that he is watching from the other side. Woo-seok is momentarily stunned by her beauty, then remembers that he came to investigate a death. At Yoon-ji's funeral, employees whisper that executive director Song Jae-wook had promised to remove Seol-ah and promote Yoon-ji before the next major auction. That gives Yoon-ji a professional motive for threatening Seol-ah and gives Seol-ah a possible motive for silencing her. Woo-seok asks his police contact, Detective Gong Ju-young, for background information. When he sees Seol-ah's photograph, he recognizes the woman from the mirror. He enters her name into the insurance system and finds a policy purchased by Sung-jae, with Seol-ah listed as beneficiary. The policy was canceled 11 days earlier. Sung-jae died the following day. Woo-seok calls Sung-jae's number, but a family member answers and confirms the death. The restaurant owner drowned after falling from his yacht. The timing makes Woo-seok suspect a carefully planned insurance scheme, even though canceling the policy appears to destroy the financial motive. He takes his findings to Ju-young and then confronts Seol-ah directly. He explains that Yoon-ji threatened her position, that Sung-jae insured his life for her benefit, and that both of them died within a suspiciously short period. Seol-ah answers every question with unnerving precision. Only the sound of Sung-jae's name briefly breaks her control. When Woo-seok asks why Sung-jae canceled the policy, Seol-ah turns the logic back on him. Canceling returned only a fraction of the premium. Why would she murder the man she planned to marry for money she could no longer collect? Woo-seok has suspicion, but no coherent financial motive. Meanwhile, the police receive an anonymous call from a woman claiming that Yoon-ji was murdered. The caller uses a disguised voice and hangs up before Ju-young can identify her. It is the first direct claim that someone else was on the roof. Woo-seok continues digging into Seol-ah's past and finds the same pattern 3 times. Lee Soo-ho, an international aid worker, died during an attack in Syria. Choi Young-ho, the psychiatrist who treated Seol-ah after Soo-ho's death, later died from an overdose of psychiatric medication. Sung-jae drowned in the yacht accident. All three men named Seol-ah as beneficiary, and all three canceled their policies shortly before dying. Seol-ah never received a cent. The deaths are different enough to avoid an obvious serial pattern. Soo-ho was reportedly the only fatality in the attack that struck his relief team. Young-ho died from the same class of medication he prescribed to patients, allowing the case to look like a private mistake. Sung-jae's body was badly damaged by the boat, making reconstruction of the exact fall difficult. Each incident belongs to a different country, profession, or environment. Only Seol-ah and the insurance policies connect them. The pattern looks too precise to be coincidence and too financially useless to be ordinary fraud. Then Woo-seok discovers that Yoon-ji contacted Sung-jae repeatedly before his death. Employees at Sung-jae's restaurant remember that she visited often and sometimes left with him. Woo-seok confronts Seol-ah again and suggests that Sung-jae was having an affair with Yoon-ji. He paints an ugly picture in which Seol-ah returned from a trip, discovered the betrayal, and killed both of them in revenge. Seol-ah's expression changes, not because he has exposed her, but because he is insulting the man she still loves. Woo-seok deliberately makes the theory cruel. He describes Yoon-ji using Seol-ah's business trips to meet Sung-jae and watches for anger, panic, or the satisfaction of a successful revenge. Seol-ah gives him none of those reactions. Her outrage is directed at Woo-seok for reducing Sung-jae to an unfaithful liar when the dead man cannot defend himself. It is the first time Woo-seok's skill at provoking suspects produces evidence against his own theory. Seol-ah later goes to Yoon-ji's home to return personal belongings and collect company files. Inside, she finds a calendar that records Seol-ah's movements instead of Yoon-ji's schedule. Every business trip and absence is marked. The discovery suggests that Yoon-ji had been monitoring Seol-ah and may have used those dates to approach Sung-jae. The discovery hurts for two opposite reasons. If Yoon-ji was meeting Sung-jae, the calendar may confirm a betrayal. If she was only watching Seol-ah, then someone has spent months turning ordinary movements into evidence. Seol-ah steals the calendar before anyone else sees it, preserving her composure while privately losing confidence in everyone around her. Woo-seok obtains footage from the aftermath of Sung-jae's yacht accident. The damage is severe, but Seol-ah watched the identification without looking away. At first, Woo-seok considered that coldness evidence of guilt. When he studies her face more closely, he sees something else. A woman so devastated that she has gone emotionally numb. His attitude begins to change. He finds Seol-ah alone in Royal Auction's projection room and lays out the sequence of her losses. Soo-ho's death drove her into psychiatric treatment. Young-ho then entered her life, only to die as well. Sung-jae finally made her believe in marriage, and the same pattern repeated. Woo-seok realizes that her restraint may be the armor of someone expecting every attachment to end in disaster. Seol-ah notices his sympathy and turns it into a challenge. If he wants the truth, he should stop studying her from a distance. She moves close and asks whether he is willing to become the next man who falls in love with her. The question is flirtation, threat, and test at the same time. Yoon-ji's hidden life soon becomes clearer. She had once been Young-ho's girlfriend. After Young-ho began treating Seol-ah, he crossed professional boundaries and drew Seol-ah into a relationship. Yoon-ji blamed Seol-ah for taking him away. She quit her former job, joined Royal Auction, rented an apartment directly across from Seol-ah's home, and watched her through binoculars every night. After Yoon-ji's death, the police obtained security footage showing her arguing with Seol-ah about an hour before the fall. Building cameras also show the two women heading toward the roof only minutes apart. With a witness claiming she saw Seol-ah coming down, Joo-young prepares to treat Seol-ah as the main suspect. The anonymous witness used a public phone and covered her face, but a nearby store owner's dashboard camera captured her leaving. Woo-seok persuades the reluctant owner to surrender the recording by buying an absurd amount of merchandise. Investigators track the woman across the transit system. She takes elaborate precautions to hide her face, yet eventually uses an access card at the subway. The route crosses a large part of the city and repeatedly doubles back. The witness keeps her cap low, chooses areas with poor camera angles, and behaves like someone familiar with surveillance. Her decision to use the transit card is the first ordinary mistake in an otherwise careful escape. Police can now reduce an anonymous silhouette to a smaller list of people. While the police follow that trail, Seol-ah receives a bottle of siren wine delivered in Sung-jae's name. The bottle terrifies her. The delivery company regularly works with Royal Auction, suggesting that someone inside the company arranged it. Seol-ah confronts her childhood friend, photographer Do Yoon-hyuk. He explains that Sung-jae gave him the bottle before the yacht accident. Sung-jae had begun to fear that he might die and asked Yoon-hyuk to deliver it to Seol-ah if that happened. Yoon-hyuk could not bring himself to honor the request. The person who finally sent the wine was Yoon-hyuk's younger sister, Do Yoon-hae, an intern at Royal Auction. Yoon-hae openly resents Seol-ah because every man who gets close to her seems to die. She is terrified that her brother will become the next victim. Yoon-hae is also the anonymous witness. Under police questioning, she claims she saw Seol-ah rushing down from the roof after Yoon-ji fell. Yoon-hyuk is furious because he knows his sister is lying, but the statement gives police the final excuse they need. Woo-seok searches Yoon-ji's car and finds binoculars and evidence of another residence. He traces the address, tests doors floor by floor, and eventually enters the nearly empty apartment facing Seol-ah's building. A detailed model of the apartment complex sits on a table. Hidden inside it is a phone used to record Seol-ah. The emptiness makes the room more disturbing. Yoon-ji did not rent it to live there. There is no comfortable furniture, no decoration, and almost nothing unrelated to the woman across the courtyard. The model recreates sight lines between the two buildings, while the phone turns the miniature house into a concealed recording station. The model also contains figures representing Seol-ah and Young-ho, confirming that Yoon-ji's obsession began with the psychiatrist. When technicians unlock the hidden phone, they recover audio files that document Yoon-ji's surveillance. The police arrest Seol-ah in the middle of an auction, humiliating her before clients and the press. Ju-young presents the timeline, Yoon-hae's statement, and the footage placing Seol-ah near the roof. Seol-ah finally admits that she went upstairs that night, but says Yoon-ji had already fallen. She concealed the visit because she knew everyone would treat her as the killer. Ju-young argues that an innocent person would have called emergency services immediately. Seol-ah answers that an ordinary innocent person does not have 3 dead lovers, 2 dead parents, and a colleague who threatened her shortly before falling from a roof. She did not trust the police to separate the scene from her reputation. The arrest proves that fear was not irrational. Seol-ah insists on speaking privately with Yoon-hyuk. From the monitoring room, Woo-seok reads her lips and realizes that she is directing Yoon-hyuk toward the indoor garden. He races back to Royal Auction and finds the proof she meant him to see. Security footage shows Seol-ah passing through the flower room at the exact moment Yoon-ji fell. The location makes it physically impossible for her to have pushed Yoon-ji from the roof. Yoon-hae's testimony collapses, and Seol-ah is released. The police are ready to call Yoon-ji's death a suicide, but Woo-seok refuses. If Seol-ah is innocent, then the 3 dead lovers, the cancelled policies, the surveillance, the wine, and Yoon-ji's fall still point to someone deliberately manufacturing a curse around her. Once Seol-ah is cleared, the mystery expands instead of shrinking. Someone killed Yoon-ji and spent years making Seol-ah look like a woman whose lovers die. The culprit has to be close enough to know her relationships, patient enough to manipulate insurance policies, and ruthless enough to turn every death into another reason for Seol-ah to distrust herself. Royal Auction chairwoman Kim Sun-ae immediately looks suspicious. She treats Seol-ah with maternal warmth, cooks for her, and prepares food when she hears about the arrest. Yet when Seol-ah is absent, Sun-ae enters a hidden room filled with valuable paintings and stares at a portrait of a family. She also relies on Seol-ah to conduct questionable auctions in which ordinary works are pushed to extraordinary prices. Sun-ae's affection is convincing because it is built from small domestic gestures rather than public speeches. That makes the private vault more troubling. Her warmth may be genuine, but it exists beside a business that profits from false values and hidden ownership. Seol-ah can be both the employee she favors and the instrument she uses. Baek-jun-byom is just as unsettling. The technology CEO openly desires Seol-ah and offers her important artwork while suggesting that private cooperation will earn professional rewards. Seol-ah refuses without surrendering her dignity, forcing him to disguise the proposition as a joke. Wang Suk-ji, the owner of the Midnight Bar, appears to be Seol-ah's loyal friend, but she was seen confronting Yoon-ji in a hallway on the night of the fall. Detective Pyo Song-il's wife is another strange presence. She appears at the police station and watches Woo-seok with an unreadable expression, though no one yet knows whether that means anything. Seol-ah attends the memorial marking 100 days since Sung-jae's death. His mother grabs her by the collar and blames her for destroying her son. Sung-jae's younger brother produces the canceled insurance policy and demands to know why his brother insured his life for Seol-ah before dying. Seol-ah does not fight back. The family's accusation is cruel, but she understands that they have been given the same facts as Woo-seok: a large policy, a dead son, and a fiancé who appears almost unnaturally calm. Her silence protects the family from her anger, while making them even more certain that she feels nothing. Woo-seok arrives before the confrontation becomes violent. His position as an insurance investigator gives his warning enough authority to make the family back down, but they still refuse to let Seol-ah enter the memorial hall. Outside, Seol-ah remembers the future she expected to have with Sung-jae. She removes their engagement ring and throws it down a mountainside, hoping the gesture will finally sever the grief. Woo-seok follows, but instead of comforting her, he asks about the fire that killed her parents. He wants to know whether she has truly played no part in any of the deaths surrounding her. The timing is brutal. Seol-ah has just been rejected by the family of the man she loved, and Woo-seok's question makes her feel that no one will ever see her as anything except a killer. She backs toward the cliff and says she needs to retrieve the ring. Her despair makes it clear that she is thinking about ending more than the engagement. Woo-seok pulls her away from the edge. The fear in his face exposes what his professional language tries to hide. He no longer sees Seol-ah as an insurance suspect. He sees a woman being driven toward death by the very investigation he started. Guilt gives him a new purpose. To investigate from inside Royal Auction, Woo-seok creates an insurance incident involving an enormously valuable vase, then positions himself as the investigator responsible for the company's art coverage. The method is reckless, expensive, and perfectly consistent with a man who treats rules as obstacles whenever a life may be at risk. Woo-seok travels to Seol-ah's hometown to investigate the fire. Residents avoid the subject, so he asks Yoon-hyuk about their childhood. Yoon-hyuk explains that Seol-ah's father was a struggling painter buried under illegal debt. Collectors and lenders exploited him. One creditor even pressed a hot iron against young Seol-ah's shoulder while her parents watched. She endured the pain without screaming, learning early that showing weakness only gave cruel people more power. Not long afterward, both parents died in a house fire. Seol-ah survived because someone carried her out. Since then, she has faced every crisis with the same frightening silence. Woo-seok returns to Yoon-ji's surveillance apartment and notices Seol-ah watching from across the courtyard. She knows exactly where he is. Instead of closing the curtains, she removes her coat and deliberately lets him realize that she has caught him spying. She then hides behind the curtain with a satisfied smile. Even after everything, Seol-ah refuses to surrender control of the gaze. At Royal Auction, Yoon-hae sabotages an important exhibition by damaging its central artwork. She believes the insurance will cover the loss and assumes the company cannot blame her alone. She even threatens management with secrets if they dismiss her. Her sabotage is more than a childish attack on Seol-ah. Yoon-hae understands that a major exhibition depends on reputation, deadlines, and a single promised centerpiece. Insurance can replace money after a loss, but it cannot recreate the public event on schedule. She has chosen the kind of damage that a policy cannot truly repair. The money is not the immediate problem. Without the centerpiece, the exhibition may collapse. Seol-ah goes directly to the artist, kneels, and asks for a replacement. The artist finally agrees to create a new work overnight. Seol-ah, Woo-seok, and the studio team join the exhausting reconstruction. When the furnace erupts, Seol-ah freezes. The flames pull her back into the night her parents died. Woo-seok sees the panic she normally conceals and understands that the childhood fire is not a cold criminal secret. It remains a living trauma. The exhibition opens on time. Seol-ah displays both the replacement and the shattered original, presenting destruction itself as part of the installation. The disaster that Yoon-hae designed to ruin her becomes another professional success. Police reviewing footage of Yoon-ji's fall discover that a person in a nearby building was filming the roof. The image is distant, but when enlarged, it confirms that another figure was present. Yoon-ji did not die alone. Woo-seok proposes a dangerous experiment. If Seol-ah is not cursed, then someone has been killing anyone who loves her. Woo-seok will publicly become her fourth boyfriend and wait for the killer to attack. Seol-ah accepts because the alternative is spending the rest of her life afraid of every person who gets close. Their first target is Jun Byum. Seol-ah visits his country estate under the pretense of discussing insurance for a valuable painting. Woo-seok accompanies her as the man now handling Royal Auction's coverage. To provoke jealousy, They behave like an affectionate couple in front of Jun Byum. Jun Byum tries to control the conversation through wealth. He displays the estate, the art, and the access royal auction wants from him. Woo-seok responds by acting as if the only valuable thing in the room is Seol-ah. Their performance transforms a business meeting into a silent contest over who has the right to define her. Woo-seok notices several bottles of siren wine in the house. The brand was created by Sung-jae and was sold almost exclusively through his restaurant. Jun Byum should have no reason to own so much of it. The bottles connect him to Seol-ah's dead fiancé. To increase the pressure, Woo-seok pulls Seol-ah into his arms. Seol-ah kisses him while Jun Byum watches. The display works too well. Jun Byum's expression hardens, but he leaves instead of exploding. When Woo-seok and Seol-ah separate, both pretend the kiss was merely tactical, even though neither looks convinced. The fragile trust collapses when Woo-seok receives the life insurance records of Seol-ah's parents. Her father bought a large policy naming his daughter as beneficiary. 1 month later, her mother purchased another. The fire happened soon afterward, and Seol-ah received both payments. Woo-seok places the documents on her desk and asks who started the fire. Seol-ah is the only surviving witness. Her memory returns in fragments. Gasoline across the floor, opened pesticide bottles, her father unconscious, her mother barely able to move, and a lighter in Seol-ah's hand. Her mother had given her money to see a movie and warned her not to return before midnight. Seol-ah became uneasy, used the money to buy food, and came home early. She found both parents preparing to die. Her mother looked toward the lighter and silently begged her daughter to finish what they had planned. Young Seol-ah is trapped between two impossible choices. Refusing means watching the lenders continue to torture her family. Obeying means accepting that her parents believe their insurance money is worth more to her than their lives. The adult Seol-ah remembers holding the lighter, hearing the fire, and then waking outside with the conviction that survival made her guilty. Seol-ah tells Woo-seok that she started the fire. The legal limitation period has passed, but the confession still leaves him shaken. The following day, Seol-ah receives an anonymous message containing a photograph of her with Soo-ho, the first man she loved. Very few people knew about that relationship. The sender directs her to a warehouse and provides a digital access code. Woo-seok follows her. At the assigned storage bay, Seol-ah finds another photograph connected to Sung-jae. A cabinet door suddenly swings open above her, dropping a heavy vase. Woo-seok tackles her out of the way, and the object misses her head by inches. The trap is designed to resemble another random accident. If Woo-seok had not followed, a loose cabinet and falling object could have killed Seol-ah without leaving a visible attacker. The person behind the curse is no longer limiting the danger to people who love her. Seol-ah herself can be removed when fear and suspicion fail. Jun Byum arrives at the warehouse almost immediately. He claims his company also rents storage there and that a security alert brought him to the building. Since he is already their main suspect, the explanation sounds conveniently perfect. After Woo-seok drives Seol-ah home, he notices that another vehicle is following them. They decide to continue presenting themselves as a couple and enter her apartment together. In private, Seol-ah explains the full story of the fire. Her father had purchased insurance because lenders threatened Seol-ah. He planned to die so the payment could protect her. When Seol-ah's mother discovered his plan, she bought another policy and chose to die beside him. Seol-ah did not want to survive alone. After dropping the lighter, she tried to run back into the burning house, but a neighbor pulled her away. Woo-seok holds her as she finally tells the story without armor. He no longer believes she killed her parents for money. Yet after he leaves, Seol-ah tears up the warehouse photograph and throws it away with a cold expression, preserving one more secret from him. Their fake relationship quickly becomes workplace gossip. Employees catch them exchanging private smiles and meeting outside the office. Yoon-hyuk sees their growing closeness, while police discover that he repaired Sung-jae's yacht shortly before the fatal accident. Since Yoon-hyuk was also at Royal Auction when Yoon-ji died, Ju-young begins to wonder whether he has been helping Seol-ah. Woo-seok investigates Jun Byum's past and learns that the CEO once claimed to have worked with the same international relief organization as Soo-ho. The organization has no current record under Jun Byum's name, but Soo-ho's name remains in its files. Jun Byum may have known Seol-ah years before he supposedly met her. An aid worker who served in Syria returns to Korea and agrees to speak with Woo-seok. The man confirms that Jun Byum was part of the organization and that he knew Soo-ho. Before he can explain more, a black vehicle follows them from the airport, forces their car off the road, and sends it rolling into a barrier. The attack begins the moment the witness confirms the relationship. That timing tells Woo-seok that someone is monitoring his investigation closely enough to know where he went and whom he collected. It also suggests that the witness knows more than Jun Byum's name. The killer is willing to risk a spectacular road collision to stop the next sentence. The witness is critically injured. Woo-seok regains consciousness and sees Seol-ah approaching the wreck. Her face appears unnaturally calm. She calls emergency services and hands police her dashboard recording, which shows that she turned back and went toward the victims. The footage seems to clear her, but it also records a contradiction. At the hospital, Ju-young begs Woo-seok to abandon the operation. Whether Seol-ah is a killer or simply surrounded by one, becoming her boyfriend has almost cost him his life. Seol-ah overhears Woo-seok saying he must continue and walks away before hearing the reason. Woo-seok believes Jun Byum caused the crash and that the real target was the aid worker, not him. Ju-young is not merely protecting a colleague. She has watched Woo-seok convert grief over his sister into a career of chasing people who profit from death. His refusal to stop now looks less like courage and more like another way to punish himself. Woo-seok hears the warning, but the unconscious witness in the next room makes withdrawal feel like abandoning someone twice. Seol-ah later tells Woo-seok that she was inspired by a painting called Orphans of Syria and went to the relief organization on her own. She says she saw his damaged car, immediately ran to help, and pulled at the driver's door. Her own dashboard footage shows her leaving the vehicle slowly and pausing before she moved. She is lying about something, even if she did not cause the crash. The next day, an anonymous bouquet of lisianthus arrives for Seol-ah's birthday. Soo-ho once gave her the same flowers. Hidden with them is his old phone, still using a photograph of the couple as its wallpaper. A dead man is no longer just a memory. Someone has begun placing pieces of him directly in her path. Seol-ah unlocks Soo-ho's phone with the same gesture she remembers from years ago. The photo gallery contains a video from the end of their relationship. Soo-ho proposed before leaving for Syria, but Seol-ah had finally earned an internship at Royal Auction and refused to abandon the career she had spent years pursuing. Distance turned the disagreement into suspicion. Soo-ho believed Seol-ah had found someone else. Seol-ah believed the war had changed his temper. Their final argument became vicious, and Soo-ho recorded himself saying that if he died, Seol-ah would be responsible. Watching it now makes her feel as if a dead man has returned to accuse her. Woo-seok arrives with a birthday cake and flowers of his own. Seol-ah tells him about the anonymous bouquet but hides the phone. Woo-seok studies the handwriting on the card and concludes that the sender is left-handed. Jun Byum frequently uses his left hand, adding another small piece to the case against him. The two gifts represent opposite versions of intimacy. Woo-seok arrives openly and allows Seol-ah to decide whether to let him inside. The anonymous sender uses a dead man's private memory to enter her home without permission. By hiding the phone, Seol-ah is not rejecting Woo-seok's help. She is afraid that showing him the message will drag him deeper into a danger that already nearly killed him. Woo-seok has also purchased a large life insurance policy naming Seol-ah as beneficiary. He wants the hidden killer to believe the fourth boyfriend has entered the same pattern as the first three. Seol-ah is furious. To her, the policy is not bait. It is a prediction that Woo-seok will die because he chose her. She tears the document apart. His insistence that he trusts her finally breaks through her anger, and their fake romance produces another real kiss. Before the moment can continue, Woo-seok receives a call from the hospital. The witness from the crash has regained consciousness and is being moved to an ordinary room. Woo-seok immediately suspects that whoever caused the crash will try again. He tells the caller to spread the news, but quietly arranges a trap. Seol-ah wants to accompany him. Woo-seok refuses, saying her presence will create more suspicion. After his car leaves, Seol-ah's face turns cold and she calls someone. At the hospital, a man with long hair and white gloves enters the witness's room. He confirms the patient's identity, removes a syringe, and injects an unknown substance into the IV line. The person in the bed is actually Woo-seok's colleague, and the needle never reaches his bloodstream. A phone records the entire attempt. The staged transfer is announced loudly enough for the killer's network to hear. Woo-seok leaves the room looking insufficiently guarded and places his colleague beneath the blankets. The trap depends on making the attacker believe urgency matters more than caution. When the man injects first and checks later, he gives investigators the attempted murder evidence they have been missing. Woo-seok passes the disguised attacker near the elevator and recognizes details from the crash. He chases him into the parking garage. The man ambushes Woo-seok, exploits his recent injuries, and escapes. But the hidden recording gives police evidence of attempted murder. The aid worker reveals one more crucial fact. Jun Beom and Soo-ho were close friends in Syria, and Soo-ho died while saving him. Woo-seok builds a theory that Jun Beom blames Seol-ah for breaking Soo-ho's heart. He may have killed her later partners, sent Soo-ho's belongings, and created the legend of a cursed woman until Seol-ah destroyed herself. The evidence is still circumstantial, and Seol-ah's secret phone call remains unexplained. To force Jun Beom into a mistake, she visits his office carrying a hidden camera. Woo-seok and a technical specialist monitor the feed from a vehicle outside. Jun Beom keeps Seol-ah waiting while he orders employees to delete security footage from every exit. Woo-seok's specialist notices the mass deletion and races to recover the files before they disappear. He saves an image showing Jun Beom with the white-gloved attacker. Inside the office, Seol-ah first pretends she came to discuss an auction consignment. She then says Royal Auction may publicly identify the owners of important works, hoping that exposure will frighten him. Jun Beom remains calm. When she directly asks why he has been circling her life, he smiles as if the confrontation is exactly what he wanted. Woo-seok cannot reach the office quickly enough, so he triggers the building's fire alarm. The sound produces an immediate trauma response in Jun Beom. He sends Seol-ah away rather than let her watch him lose control. That reaction leads Woo-seok to a former employee. After Jun Beom returned from Syria, he dismissed most of the people who had known him before the attack. The company's security system also began reporting repeated iris recognition failures. Surgery can alter a face, but it cannot replace the unique pattern of an iris. The relief organization kept DNA samples from both Jun Beom and Soo-ho. Woo-seok only needs a current sample from the man using Jun Beom's name. The theory sounds impossible, but the iris failures explain why Jun Beom replaced the old staff. People who knew his habits, voice, and body before Syria might notice inconsistencies that new employees would dismiss. A face reconstructed after catastrophic injuries can explain scars. It cannot explain why the company's biometric system suddenly rejects its own founder. At a major auction, Seol-ah arranges the test. A staff member gives Jun Beom champagne containing an allergen that affected Soo-ho. Jun Beom immediately goes into anaphylactic shock. Seol-ah does not look triumphant. She looks terrified because the reaction suggests that the man in front of her may truly be Soo-ho. She grabs Jun Beom's emergency injector and administers it with the practiced precision of someone who remembers Soo-ho's allergy. While everyone focuses on saving him, Woo-seok takes the used medical tube for DNA testing. Seol-ah cannot wait for the laboratory. She confronts Jun Beom and asks how Soo-ho became another man. His tears answer before his words do. On the day of the attack in Syria, Soo-ho had washed his own coat and temporarily wore Jun Beom's. Rescuers found him badly injured and identified him by the clothing. His face and vocal cords were reconstructed according to Jun Beom's records. Soo-ho returned to Korea living inside his dead friend's identity. The real Jun Beom died while the survivor could no longer reliably speak for himself. By the time Soo-ho understood the mistake, doctors, documents, and corporate employees had already built a new identity around him. He gained Jun Beom's wealth and lost the right to return as the man Seol-ah knew. Instead of correcting the lie, he accepted its power. He initially planned to reveal himself to Seol-ah. Then he saw her entering a hotel with an older man and decided to test her instead. Years of injury, jealousy, and isolation transformed reunion into obsession. The house and future he once promised her became a stage on which he could decide whether she deserved him. The DNA report confirms that the man known as Jun Beom is Soo-ho. When Seol-ah stops answering her phone, Woo-seok contacts Ju Young and gives police a reason to track her location. He then breaks into Jun Beom's house and finds a locked room covered with photographs of Seol-ah, her dead lovers, Yoon-ji, and Woo-seok himself. At a mountain villa, Jun Beom shows Seol-ah the home he once described when they were young. The courtyard, white tree, swing, and square two-story house reproduce his old promise in disturbing detail. Seol-ah recognizes Soo-ho's memories in every corner, but the tenderness of the setting only makes his possessiveness more frightening. Jun Beom speaks as if completing the house proves that he preserved their love. Seol-ah sees the opposite. He has frozen one conversation from their youth and spent years forcing reality to fit it. The estate is not the future they chose together. It is a museum built by a man who refuses to accept that she once chose a different life. When Seol-ah tries to escape, the power suddenly fails. She finds a weapon and struggles with Jun Byum, but he takes it from her. He leaves to inspect the outage. Seol-ah runs outside and finds him collapsed in a pool of blood. She tries to stop the bleeding, covering her hands and face. Police trace her phone to the villa. They follow blood toward the pool and find Jun Byum dead beside a blood-covered Seol-ah. The weapon carries her fingerprints. Once again, she is arrested beside a man who insured his life for her benefit. During interrogation, Seol-ah refuses to answer without Royal Auction's lawyer. The company is less concerned about her freedom than about the auction. Jun Byum owned the centerpiece, and his death threatens the entire event. Management decides to distance the business from Seol-ah. Executives discuss replacement artwork and public relations while Seol-ah sits in a holding room accused of murder. Their priority makes the company's loyalty unmistakable. She was valuable, while she could command a room and protect the brand. The moment her name threatens the next auction, she becomes another damaged asset to remove. The lawyer offers representation only if she signs a resignation. Seol-ah reverses the bargain. She promises to resign after she is released, but only if the lawyer gets her out first. She knows that signing immediately would allow Royal Auction to abandon her completely. Woo-seok returns to the villa looking for proof of a third person. Police found no footprints inside, so he studies the possible escape routes outside. In the wooded area, he discovers a bloody handprint on a tree, probably left by someone who slipped in freshly watered soil. Testing confirms that the blood belongs to Jun Byum. The mark does not prove who killed him, but it proves another person left the scene. Seol-ah is no longer a clear-cut offender and is released while the investigation continues. Chairwoman Sun-ae welcomes her back with false sympathy, then orders her to hand over her work. A replacement auctioneer has already been trained. Seol-ah realizes that the woman who treated her like a daughter was ready to erase her the moment she became inconvenient. Seol-ah's career at Royal Auction was never only about ambition. Her father had produced copies of famous paintings for Sun-ae. Sun-ae sold the originals, replaced them with forgeries, and then staged accidents during transportation. Insurance paid for the supposedly destroyed art, while the genuine pieces were sold again through the black market. When Seol-ah's father refused to continue, Sun-ae used a contract and manufactured debt to destroy him. Seol-ah joined Royal Auction to recover the genuine paintings, expose the scheme, and restore her father's name. She has mapped much of the criminal network, but still lacks the physical evidence hidden in Sun-ae's properties. Woo-seok is pursuing the same network for a different reason. His younger sister, Cha Woo-seok, died in a staged road accident while traveling with her boyfriend, Ju Hun-soo. Woo-seok had sedatives in her system. Hun-soo escaped serious injury, and he had recently purchased a large policy on her life. The evidence was obvious, but legally insufficient. Hun-soo received only a suspended sentence. Woo-seok attacked him in court, lost his police career, and became an insurance investigator so he could expose fraud cases and keep searching for proof. An art insurance claim shows a truck crash almost identical to Woo-seok's death, except the cargo was a painting. Woo-seok traces packaging from the supposedly destroyed works to Hyun-soo's basement. When Hyun-soo returns unexpectedly, Seol-ah pulls Woo-seok away before he ruins the investigation. Both crashes occurred on similar mountain roads. In each case, the passenger side absorbed the worst impact while the driver survived. With Woo-hee, the cargo was a human life insured for Hyun-soo's benefit. In the later claim, the cargo was a painting insured for Sun-ae's organization. The repeated method exposes Hyun-soo as more than one dishonest boyfriend. He is a professional tool in a larger insurance operation. Seol-ah tries to end their relationship. Jun Byum is another man who died after loving her, and she cannot bear the thought that Woo-seok will be next. She also has little time to argue. Sun-ae is forcing her out, and the hidden paintings must be found before Seol-ah loses access to Royal Auction. Then Woo-seok receives Jun Byum's insurance claim. Seol-ah is again the beneficiary. Jun Byum also left her every work in his collection, including a masterpiece worth well over 15 billion won. The inheritance makes her enormously wealthy and, in the eyes of the police, gives her a powerful new motive for murder. The same gift that may have been Jun Byum's final attempt at love-trap Seol-ah inside the accusation one more time. Woo-seok meets Seol-ah as the investigator assigned to Jun Byum's policy. She greets him with her usual hostility, using sharpness to protect herself from another loss. Woo-seok refuses to fight. He tells her that he is still here and still believes her. That simple refusal to become an enemy finally lowers her defenses. They compare their investigations and realize they have been following different branches of the same criminal organization. Hun-soo worked for Sun-ae. The paintings supposedly destroyed in staged crashes are probably stored inside Royal Auction's secret vault. Sun-ae's fraud operation connects Seol-ah's father's destruction to Woo-hee's death. The realization changes the balance between them. Seol-ah no longer has to protect her father's case by keeping Woo-seok outside, and Woo-seok no longer has to treat his sister's death as a private obsession. Each possesses evidence the other needs. Their relationship becomes a genuine partnership only after both stop deciding alone what the other can bear. Sun-ae meets privately with Hyun-soo and a third person. The hidden guest is Yoon-hyuk. The childhood friend who has always appeared to protect Seol-ah has been sitting at the criminal table all along. Seol-ah attaches a tracker to Sun-ae's vehicle. Woo-seok's technical specialist follows the chairwoman while Seol-ah enters Royal Auction after hours. She knows the vault is concealed behind a service cart near the executive kitchen, and she knows that Sun-ae often uses the auction house's opening date as a password. Seol-ah wears a small camera so Woo-seok can record the evidence and warn her if Sun-ae returns. The vault's walls block the signal as soon as the door closes. At the same moment, Sun-ae receives an alert that someone has opened the room and orders her driver to turn around. Inside, Seol-ah finds the genuine paintings that were declared destroyed. She switches to her phone and records each work. Then she sees a family portrait in the center of the vault. Her father painted it from a memory of Seol-ah sitting beside him in his studio. The picture is proof that Sun-ae did not merely steal his work. She stole the life he hoped to leave his daughter. Seol-ah loses precious time staring at it. When she tries to leave, the entry code fails because the exit uses a different password. A second mistake triggers an alarm. Someone outside begins entering numbers into the keypad. It is Woo-seok, who has reached the vault moments before Sun-ae. They escape without revealing how much evidence they have collected. The next day, Seol-ah conducts what is meant to be her final auction. She keeps Sun-ae and Royal Auction's wealthy guests occupied while police secure search and arrest warrants. At Woo-seok's signal, Seol-ah replaces the auction presentation with the video from the vault. Before the country's most influential collectors, she exposes the original paintings, the substituted forgeries, the staged transportation accidents, and Sun-ae's role in ruining her father. Police enter Royal Auction and arrest the chairwoman. Sun-ae attempts to maintain the language of business, but Seol-ah refuses to let the scandal remain an accounting dispute. She names her father and explains how his skill was exploited, how his refusal produced impossible debt, and how his death was later hidden beneath the prestige of Royal Auction. The final auction becomes the public restoration of the artist Sun-ae tried to erase. Hyun-soo races to the forgery workshop and tries to burn the remaining evidence. Woo-seok has already placed a tracker beneath his vehicle. He arrives before the fire can erase everything and captures the man responsible for Woo-hee's death. For one night, it appears that both families have finally received justice. By the following day, Sun-ae is back at Royal Auction. Wealth, lawyers, and years of political connections have freed her while the investigation continues. She stands inside the emptied vault and calls the person she blames for bringing Seol-ah against her. That call brings the hidden killer into the open. When Seol-ah goes to submit her resignation, Yoon-hyuk unexpectedly arrives with a resignation letter of his own. Together, they discover Sun-ae hanging in her office. Her shoes have been arranged neatly, and a suicide note sits on a laptop. Yoon-hyuk performs the shock expected of a loyal employee and childhood friend. Seol-ah is too focused on the false scene to study him closely. The murderer has placed himself beside her at the moment of discovery, allowing him to observe what she notices and shape the first explanation before police arrive. Seol-ah immediately knows the scene is false. Sun-ae kept handwritten ledgers and distrusted electronic records. She would never compose her final confession on a computer. Someone killed her and staged the room. Another clue emerges when Seol-ah accidentally breaks the bottle of siren wine that Sung-jae left behind. A letter is hidden beneath the label. Sung-jae explains that a woman told him frightening stories about Seol-ah and encouraged him to test her with a life insurance policy. When a second person repeated the warning, he began to doubt the woman he planned to marry. He devised the hidden letter as his own test. If Seol-ah murdered him for insurance money, she would open the wine to celebrate and find the accusation. If she truly loved him, the bottle would remain unopened as a keepsake, and the letter would stay hidden. The fact that Seol-ah preserved it proves how badly he misjudged her. One of the people manipulating Sung-jae was Yoon-ji. The identity of the second person leads Woo-seok and Seol-ah toward Yoon-hyuk. Insurance records reveal that Yoon-hyuk's mother had connections to the policies purchased by Seol-ah's parents. Sung-jae's note also indicates that Yoon-hyuk encouraged the policy that made him suspicious. They separate to test the theory. Seol-ah goes to royal auction to keep Yoon-hyuk occupied while Woo-seok searches his photography studio. Yoon-hyuk is not at the office, but Seol-ah finds Sun-ae's secret ledger inside his bag. The ledger records years of loans to Yoon-hyuk, including money used to build a darkroom and a hidden passage. At the studio, Woo-seok pulls aside a backdrop and discovers that passage. It opens onto a rear alley where a motorcycle provides an unrecorded escape route. Yoon-hyuk could leave after appearing on camera, commit a murder, and return without breaking his visible alibi. The passage explains why every investigation kept reaching a locked door. Cameras showed Yoon-hyuk entering the studio and remaining there overnight, so detectives treated the footage as proof of innocence. The darkroom gave him a professional reason to block light and limit access, while the tunnel let him move through the city as an unseen second version of himself. As Woo-seok prepares to call police, he hears a weapon being loaded behind him. Yoon-hyuk steps from the shadows with a hunting rifle. The photographer takes Woo-seok to the water, binds him, and loads him with weights. Woo-seok keeps him talking and secretly calls Seol-ah through his smartwatch. She hears enough to understand that Yoon-hyuk is the killer and contacts Ju-young while racing to the location. Yoon-hyuk insists that he has always protected Seol-ah. In his mind, every man who hurt, doubted, exploited, or controlled her forfeited the right to live. What he calls protection is really a system in which he alone decides who is worthy of standing beside her. Seol-ah arrives and begs him to release Woo-seok. The sight of her makes Yoon-hyuk panic because he cannot tolerate being seen as the monster he has become. He fires at Woo-seok. Seol-ah moves between them and takes the bullet in her shoulder. Her choice destroys the fantasy governing Yoon-hyuk's crimes. He believed every man was temporary and that Seol-ah would eventually understand who had truly protected her. Instead, she risks her life for Woo-seok and looks at Yoon-hyuk with terror. The person he tried to possess has chosen someone who respects her freedom. Yoon-hyuk freezes. The violence he justified as protection has directly wounded the person he claimed to save. Police surround him, and he surrenders without another fight. Seol-ah's injury misses the major blood vessels and nerves, and doctors expect a full recovery. After his arrest, Yoon-hyuk refuses to explain anything. Investigators stage a hallway encounter and announce that Seol-ah may be detained for ordering the murders. The tactic works. Yoon-hyuk cannot allow her to carry his crimes, so he finally begins to confess. Young-ho, Seol-ah's psychiatrist and second boyfriend, abused his professional power. He crossed physical and emotional boundaries while treating her, then reinforced her terror by encouraging the insurance test. During one of his drug injections, Yoon-hyuk secretly altered the medication and caused the fatal overdose. Sung-jae appeared loving but allowed Yoon-ji's accusations to infect him. He bought the policy to test Seol-ah and went fishing alone after canceling it. Yoon-hyuk boarded the yacht, drugged him, and threw him into the water. He used diving equipment to return to shore and make the death look accidental. Yoon-ji saw Yoon-hyuk emerging from the water. She did not understand what she had witnessed until she learned that he also worked as an underwater photographer. On the royal auction roof, her fear revealed that she had identified him. Yoon-hyuk killed her before she could expose him. He also suspected that Jun-beom was really Soo-ho. Yoon-hyuk placed Soo-ho's allergen in the champagne and used Yoon-hae to deliver it. Once the reaction confirmed the identity, he followed Jun-beom to the villa, cut the power, and killed him while Seol-ah was escaping. Yoon-hyuk claims that he killed Sun-ae because she mistreated Seol-ah. He says the chairwoman had financed his life for years in exchange for using his name in secret art transactions. Woo-seok and the detectives recognize that this explanation is incomplete. Yoon-hyuk is still hiding the origin of their relationship. Seol-ah visits him and demands the entire truth. Yoon-hyuk returns to his childhood. His father was violent and regularly attacked the family. During one assault, Yoon-hyuk pushed him down the stairs. The fall broke his neck and killed him. Police treated the death as an accident, and Yoon-hyuk's mother collected the insurance payment before abandoning her children. The childhood death began as an attempt to survive abuse, but the adults around him taught the worst possible conclusion. The authorities asked too few questions, and his mother transformed the loss into money before disappearing. Yoon-hyuk learned that violence could be renamed an accident, and that an insurance payment could make everyone stop looking. That experience taught him a poisonous lesson. A death could be disguised, officially accepted, and converted into money. On the night Seol-ah's parents planned to die, Yoon-hyuk entered the house and found Seol-ah unconscious from the shock. Her parents had prepared the fuel, but Seol-ah had not completed the act she remembered. Yoon-hyuk lit the fire, then carried her outside. He let her grow up believing she had killed them. Son A saw him rescuing Seol-ah. She used that secret to control him, threatening to reveal the truth unless he helped with her criminal business. Yoon-hyuk and Hyun-soo became the people who handled the dangerous work behind the forged art operation. Yoon-hyuk says guilt prevented him from openly loving Seol-ah. Instead, he turned guilt into a private religion. He eliminated anyone he judged unworthy and told himself each murder was an act of protection. Even now, he insists that different circumstances might have made his choices understandable. Seol-ah rejects that final excuse. She tells him that no one has caused her more suffering than he has. He stole her parents, her lovers, her memories, and her ability to trust her own life. Before leaving, she orders him never to say her name again. For Yoon-hyuk, losing the right to speak her name is more devastating than any sentence. Later, he dies by suicide while in custody. His death ends the murderer, but it cannot return the years he took from everyone around Seol-ah. Hyun-soo receives a 15-year prison sentence for the insurance fraud crimes tied to Woo-hee and the art network. Detective Pyo apologizes to Woo-seok for how long justice took. The conviction does not erase Woo-seok's grief, but it finally proves that his sister was murdered rather than lost in a meaningless accident. Woo-seok continues working as an insurance investigator. At a community event organized by his team, Seol-ah teaches children to draw. She has left Royal Auction and plans to study art therapy abroad, turning the talent and trauma inherited from her father into a way to help other people. At home, Woo-seok proposes. Seol-ah warns him that she intends to leave the country for her studies. He places the ring on her finger anyway and says he can take time away from work and go with her. This time, love is not an insurance test, a trap, or one person deciding another person's future. It is an offer to walk beside her while she chooses for herself. Seol-ah does not need to promise that fear will disappear. Woo-seok does not ask her to prove devotion by giving up the opportunity abroad. His response is deliberately ordinary. Schedules can change, leave can be requested, and a couple can solve the next practical problem when it arrives. After a story filled with fatal tests, that lack of a test is what makes the proposal sincere. Seol-ah hands her auction duties to Go Sang-mi and closes the career she once entered for revenge. Her father's family portrait is restored and displayed openly in a gallery, no longer hidden in Sun-ai's vault or treated as evidence of shame. Seol-ah and Woo-seok stand before the painting with their hands locked together. The series does not pretend their wounds have vanished. It simply leaves them with something neither of them had before, a future that belongs to the living. That's all for today's drama recap. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, comment, and share. I'll see you in the next one.